What if I had never ever moved to the USA? What if I hadn't married my American hubby? What if I hadn't moved back to England after he passed away? Not in a dramatic way, I'm thinking. Not with regret exactly. It's just a quiet question that comes back sometimes. Usually it happens when things are still. It's strange how certain decisions stay with you like that. They're not the loud ones, not the obvious ones even, but the ones that quietly split your life into two versions, the what if and the reality, and what actually did happen. The one that you lived and the one that you didn't live. So I think about that sometimes, that version of me who may have stayed in England. What if? That version of me who did come to Florida, that reality. So I can almost see it, but not clearly, but enough to feel something about it when I ask myself, what if? Maybe my life would have felt easier if I'd stayed in England. No homesickness, no culture shock. But I wouldn't have had all the experiences that I had had. I wouldn't have had them. None of that would have happened if I'd stayed in England. Maybe life would have been easier in the long run. Familiar routines, the same places, the same kind of days, the same people, the same types of people, nothing too disruptive. No need to rebuild anything. But what if? If I had stayed there, who knows what would have happened to me? Who knows some negative things that would have happened to me if I'd stayed in England? I don't know. There's something comforting about the thought of reality to me. But the more I sit with that idea, the more I realize I probably made that version of life simpler than it really would have been. So by making my decisions, it's simple. I made that decision. I don't have to overthink what would have happened if I had stayed in England, or if even going back to England after my hubby had died, moving from Florida to England again. So we take the path that we didn't choose and we soften it sometimes. We remove the uncertainty by making a decision. But real life, it doesn't always work out the way we plan, does it? We know that for real. If I had stayed in England, there would have been hard moments as well. It's easy to forget that and look at the rose-coloured view. As my dear mum once said to me when I was living over in America and missing my England and missing her, of course, and my family, she said, "Dear, don't look at England through rose-coloured glasses. It's not perfect, has its flaws." And that word of wisdom gave me such an amazing peace in the midst of my homesickness in my early days in America. So we don't know. We don't know what would have happened if I had stayed in England. There would have been hard moments too, just different ones from the ones that I had in America. And maybe it's just possible I would have felt stuck there. I would have wanted change but didn't know how to go about getting it. Maybe I would have sat there wondering what would have my life have been if I hadn't gone to the United States in my 30s. And that question, it may have followed me into my older age more than I realise. That what if. And now the transition to England. Moving back there for 2.5 years, it wasn't easy. And moving to England after 18 years in the United States wasn't easy. It was exciting. It was a real new chapter, but it was uncomfortable. I was going out of my comfort zone. I had a comfortable home. I had things, I had people I knew around me. The roads I knew. The car that I had, I knew it. Hi. It's been one of those mornings that I've been driving to a tutoring session down on the coast here in my area, and I've come back a different way because I'm visiting the school that I used to teach at before I left Pensacola, Florida, to go back to England for the 2.5 years that I went back there. And so you can imagine driving around in the area where I used to live churns up lots of memories, and some of them happy, some of them not happy. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Steffi. I'm an English girl who met and married an American man, moved to Northwest Florida in 2004 and lived here for 18 years. Still find it amazing how long I actually lived here for. And in the meantime, we had a sad journey towards the end. After many happy, busy family years, he had a brain cancer diagnosis in 2020. So we had a mixture of memories, and especially me towards the end of my husband's life here on earth. So as I drive around, it's amazing to me just how many things hold a memory, and simple things that you wouldn't even remember in the forefront of your memory, but when you go back to that place, you see it. One of the things was that I drove into the branch of the bank that we have to go in and draw out a little bit of spending money, cash. Nice to have a bit of cash on us, isn't it? And as I pulled up, I was remembering this precise space that I used to drive into and leave my hubby in the car while I walked in. Of course, he's not a child, so that was fine to leave him there, but I will remember that anxiety and that feeling of, I was glad to care for him, very, very glad. I was very privileged and blessed to care for my husband in his last couple of years, but at the same time, it was an enormous responsibility, and anyone who's done any caring of a loved one will absolutely, totally empathize and know what I'm talking about. So this video is not planned at all. I figured I would just share with you while I'm waiting in my car, and it's got that very pleasant sound of the rain on my car. Thumbs up if you like that sound. I do. It's strangely peaceful, isn't it? It's strangely interesting to hear it pattering on the roof and you're safe and dry in your car. So it's been a mixture this morning of happy and sad. Pulling up at that parking space, I can just remember him completely, so clearly, like it was almost yesterday, sitting in the space in the passenger seat as I had been driving for the last 5-7 years of his life due to him not being able to drive. So that was a curious memory there, and of course I'm sharing these things with you after the event, so when you're going through it, there's a few tears there, or an anguish feeling of, oh Lord, you know, why do we go through these things? Not in a complaining way at all. I've learnt that in my life, that these things happen for a reason. However, there is that wondering feeling, and to go to a different area. Some people might not agree with me. Some people who have been widowed especially may say, well, I really think you should just stay where you are. You know, too much change is not good. Well, it depends on the person, of course, but for me, and I believe this would probably be the case for a lot of people, that they need to change. They need to remove themselves somewhat from the situation that they were in. And I believe that moving to a different area now has really greatly helped me. And I would suggest that for anyone watching who wants a little advice. Not to necessarily make a huge life change if you're not ready for it, but I don't think we're ever ready for a big life change. I think saying that we should wait till we're ready, when is ready, you know? I don't think are we ever ready to die? I know that's a big question, but usually the answer is no. So I have to say that the what if question almost becomes like a reality. The what if I had stayed, what if I had gone situation becomes a reality in our lives. And I don't think that's altogether very stable. So I don't always talk about this, but it is something that comes into my mind. And sometimes it comes on me without me really noticing it. So in all of these scenarios and all of these decisions that I've made, I've often learned how to exist outside of what was familiar to me, and I've learned how to adjust. I've learned how to sit in discomfort sometimes without trying to escape it necessarily. I've learned so many new skills of life. I've met so many amazing people. When I went to Florida, I've made some precious friends who are still my friends after 20-something years. That's remarkable, and that's precious to me. Absolutely precious. I have amazing memories. I have an amazing memory of my hubby and I when we were staying in, I think it was Mississippi, may not have been, and we were on these really, really long, big swings, and I think there were 4 of them, and we happened to be swinging towards each other from a distance. I mean, what were the chances of us meeting on the swing in the air? Probably very, very minimal, and I wish that somebody could have videoed it. But here we were, having a miraculous moment together. Our hearts were full of joy. We were laughing so much at the fact that we actually met and touched toes in these swings in the air. So it didn't really feel that big when it was actually happening, but of course it is big. That's big. that kind of memory, that thing happening in my life was the reality. It was a part of the reality of me making that decision. So I can't go back and say, well, what if I hadn't married him? Or what if I did? And I'm glad. There's many moments like that. Memories are a series of small memories, aren't they? So as we handle things differently, we may be seeing this differently. There may be people thinking, well, yes, there is such a thing as regret. I think we do have regrets, but to sit and ponder too much about what would have happened if this and that, I don't know. I don't think that's a wise way to go myself. If I had stayed in Florida, if I had stayed in that version of myself, would I be better? Would I be worse? But I think generally the what if question isn't really about finding answers for ourselves, because there isn't one, I don't think. You can't fully imagine a life that you didn't live. You can only create a version of it or that life in your mind. And because it's not total reality, it's a what if reality or a what if scenario, that version will always be incomplete. So when I'm thinking about these things, realizing that my life, it could have gone in so many different directions. I could have ended up in Europe somewhere. I could have ended up in another country other than the United States. But every path has its trade-offs. Every path has its advantages, disadvantages. Every choice closes one door and opens another. So I think at the end of the day, it's fair to say that there'll always be a version of your life that you didn't experience. But it's important to make sure that we make the right decisions based on the best that we can do. In my case, I have so many amazing experiences and so many amazing memories of my life with my husband, my experiences, the dynamics of the two countries coming together in a marriage, in a family, the knowledge, the learning new things and cultures, and the laughs that we had. The experiences were manifold. And of course, my dear hubby himself, I have precious memories of him. I dearly miss him. So the version of myself, which is obviously now, in reality, me, my version was shaped by my decisions. Every part of it, every part of who I am now was shaped by that decision to marry my American husband, Tom, and to go and live in Florida for 18 years, to come back to England. And now, in my second act, back in Florida again, the second time. So, here's a closing thought for today. So, what if something that we all tend to do from time to time isn't something to solve? Maybe it's just something to acknowledge in ourselves. It's a reminder that life could have been different, but not necessarily for the better. It could have been worse. But the important thing is that the reality that we're now living in is enough.